Fab. There we go. Webinar has started.
Thanks, Jet.
No problem.
Hi, everyone. Just waiting for everyone to join. Hello. Just wait for people to filter in from the waiting room. Hi. Hi. Okay, I think people are still joining us, so we'll just give it a couple of minutes. Okay, I will get started, and then we can everyone else can join us as they arrive. So hello, welcome to today's session. My name is Amelia and I look after the Disabled Leaders Network, and we're really excited to welcome you to today's session on getting into creative industries. So a couple of access things before we start. Hopefully you're aware that we've got captions on this call, which you can access via the link in the chat. And you can we also have British Sign Language interpretation on the call, and hopefully you can see Vicky is currently spotlighted and pinned to your screen. Our sign language interpreters are Vicky, and their name says Vicky BSL interpreter, and Amy, and their name also says Amy BSL interpreter. So if you have any issues accessing either of those things, please use the chat if you can. If the chat is not there for you, if you can't see the chat, please use the Q&A box to let us know if you're having any issues. So someone's saying they can only see me. Lucky you. Let us see if we can sort that out. Sorry, just bear with us. Okay. Hopefully I will just share the caption link and make sure that everyone can access that. Okay, I think if that is, hopefully that's sorted, but please use the Q&A box again to let us know if you're having any issues. So today's session is going to be covering kind of the creative industries in general. We'll be hearing from Yasmin and Chris about their experiences, and they'll be sharing their advice and ideas with us. So we're really excited about this. So I think we can get started. I think so. So I would like to introduce Yasmin, who's the Executive Director of Open Style Lab, to kick us off, if that's okay, Yasmin.
Thank you very much, Amelia. Hi, everyone. My name is Yasmin Keats. I'm the Executive Director of a non-profit and charity called Open Style Lab. Just for visual description, I'm a light-skinned woman with blondie brown hair, bright pink top, and a dark blue kind of kimono-y thing. I'm going to start by just telling you a little bit about my background and how I ended up in the job that I am, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about what the job is and what Open Style Lab is. So I was born with a physical disability. My mother had chickenpox when she was pregnant with me. So what that did was it affected the nerves in my right leg and my lower back. But I also came from a family of designers, architects, artists. My mother was an architect, my grandmother was a sculptress, and her mother was a painter. So kind of looking back, I think that formed a lot of those hours in hospital, a lot of making, a lot of kind of having those spaces to get creative, and being encouraged to. And I also really recognized the privilege of having a family that encouraged making, and that I was surrounded by that. When I was 18, I went to study architecture in London. And looking back, the school was not accessible at all. It was in one of those old Georgian buildings in central London. It was all stairs. I think if you wanted to get to the top of one studio on the fifth floor to another studio on the fifth floor, you had to go down 5 flights and up 5 flights. I don't use a wheelchair. I have one crutch. I was the only visibly disabled person in the whole school, but I could get through the door. Looking back, I was on the student union. I brought it up. We ended up putting a disabled toilet on the middle floor as like the one first step, but I hadn't quite found my voice yet in seeing that this was not, this was something that I deserved as someone who had a physical disability to be able to navigate the school and not spend half an hour going to the toilet each time or being even able to get through the door. I think it set a precedent of really seeing a lot of those creative spaces from university to, I'll get to it, maker spaces and studios not being accessible, and that is a major barrier to even having people with disabilities have the access to be able to make. I think as many of you may have experienced in your life. I had a very close friend of mine from when I was 5 years old that was volunteering with the nonprofit Open Star Lab in New York. And I'll tell you a bit about that, and then I'll show you how the two worlds kind of combine. But Open Star Lab, it's a nonprofit that was started in 2014 out of MIT Age Lab. And it was really a space that wanted to educate the next generation of designers on how to do inclusive design with people with disabilities, that they take part in every stage of the process. And we run a program over 6 to 10 weeks where we bring people who have lived experience of disability, designers, material and mechanical engineers, and occupational or physical therapists together to design things that are functional, but with a focus on beauty and style, and with a focus on looking at how beauty can change the stigma of the way that people with disabilities are viewed, but also how around well-being, and looking at the importance of design on our day-to-day lives. And so they started off at MIT, but then they moved to Parsons School of Design in New York for about 5 years. Then during COVID, we became independent. That is also around the time that I joined the organization. And now we have a base in New York and in London. And going back a little bit of the steps, I had this very close friend of mine, Gabby. She was volunteering for Open Star Lab about 8 years ago, and called me up and goes, "You've got to meet these women. They're incredible. And this organization is you." And I have to admit that at my early 20s, I think, I don't know if this is something that many of you can relate to, but I was born in a family where I was the only disabled person in my whole family, in my whole kind of community. And I think at that stage also hadn't accepted it, or was had a hard time integrating it into my life and who I wanted to become as well. And I had this big thought that if I went into this space, it would define me. And at the time, I wasn't, as comfortable in that area. So I said no. And it took me a long time to kind of get more comfortable with my own disability, seeing that I kept on gravitating back towards accessible design, assistive technology, because one, it was so personal to my life, but also I saw the way in which it combined people, design, problem solving. And around my mid-20s, all right, I'm I'm ready. I'd love to, to be connected with this organization. And I started off as a researcher. And when I said, I was worried it would define me, and now I'm not worried about that at all. I look back and I don't know why that was a worry, but it actually did the opposite. Because for the first 2 years at Open Star Lab, all I did was interview people about their experience of design and their body. And I think that also, when it becomes not about yourself and it becomes about other people that you become incredibly honored to meet and they become your friends, for me, it became no longer about me. It became about, all these incredible people that I was meeting, that were having barriers that I thought was, maybe just mine alone. And then you start to see how it all connects. And it was past that. I then went on to run their educational program in New York. And then 2.5 years ago, they asked me to take over as executive director. And to give you a sense about what we do in the organization, it's not just around designing an accessible product. Open Star Lab was set up to showcase what is possible, but also to showcase how you can have real equity within the design process. So a lot of what we do on the program is not only bringing all these different people from multidisciplinary backgrounds together, but focusing on how do we create spaces where people with disabilities can be themselves? How do we create spaces that people can challenge each other, non-disabled and disabled, can ask questions, trying also to create a space that, we presume good intent, so that people can not be on eggshells working this space. A lot of the time, you're having people that may have a lot of experience with disability and other people that have no experience. So they're really worried about saying the wrong thing. But also, how do you not put all that pressure on the disabled person so that that's all they're doing is explaining themselves, and making other people feel comfortable. So it's really that balance. But a lot of what we're trying to also do is, how do we create those spaces that people can just work together and do the work, but also how do we get more people with disabilities making? I explained around, the physical infrastructure when I studied architecture. I also teach at the Royal College of Art as well. There's been a few access challenges there as well. I teach a accessible fashion class in their master's program. But a big challenge we had when we set up Open Star Lab UK in April was finding an accessible makerspace. And we ended up having to knock down a wall, build 2 ramps, build an accessible toilet in just 3 weeks to be able to make the space usable. And it's really gotten me thinking. We've done the same in New York in similar ways, in terms of the creative partners that you need when you're making. And it's all about the people in the end. It was about, finding those organizations, those spaces, those people, those businesses that are willing to have the mindset to change things as they come along. It's never going to be a perfect tick box of things that will make a space perfectly accessible. There are ways in which you have that, but a lot of the things you're going to figure it out as you go along. And it's finding those partners that will knock down a wall within 2 days for you as well. I'd love to open up for questions. Amelia, are we allowed to ask questions in the middle, or?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, I'd love to hear your, if you have any apprehensions around going into creative fields. What's been the blockers? We're still learning as we're going. We really want to understand how we can make making more accessible. And I'd also, wait, just before questions, I realized I forgot. Sorry, I've just come off a flight from Hong Kong this morning, so I'm a little bit jet lagged. But I would love to show you a video of what we do, just so that you get a sense of the type of work that we do. We were Could we show the video, Amelia?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll share this now, and just we will be describing the video.
Yes, and I'll be talking over it.
Yeah, and we will
well.
also share this with anyone who, if you didn't receive the email beforehand, we'll be sharing this afterwards so that you can also have it then. Okay, over to you, Yasmin.
Yeah, so this is a video of one of our board members, Christina, who started off as a disabled expert fellow, I think 9 years ago now. And she came to the group because she couldn't dress independently unless it was sweatpants. And she runs diversity inclusion for Microsoft in the US. But whenever she'd travel on her own, she wouldn't be able to wear the stuff that made her feel comfortable. So what I love about this clothing item is that she is using the room. So it's a clothing item that has lots of straps. So she's using, maybe it's the architect in me, using the bedpost and different parts of the room to put her clothing on and off. There's also parts that a machine hooks up to it that she can press with her foot that has this kind of balloon effect that helps to bring the clothing up that she can put on easier independently. She is now also using the straps to kind of tighten the skirt part with the door handle, and looking really at how you can use different parts of the body to dress. This one is my favorite. It's a jacket that she puts on using her mouth and through her head. And a big part of the challenge with Christina was when it got cold, she couldn't wear gloves. So the team made her slings, because both her arms are paralyzed. The team made her slings that she could get on using her feet. And as she walks out the station, you see that it's this kind of beautiful, elegant black jacket. Can pause it. And this item was really around how do we create a piece of clothing that whenever we design something, we always get people to think about how does it promote independence, sense of style, sense of well-being, and ease of getting on and off and being able just to get you to do the stuff that you want to do. I see a few questions.
I think it would be really helpful, Yasmin, if you were able to just kind of describe the video again without it playing, so that
yeah, of course,
the interpreters could interpret what you're saying, and they'll be visible, hopefully.
Yeah, so the video was of a woman in her 20s, light-skinned with blonde hair, and she has dual arm paralysis, so both her right and left arm from the shoulder below are completely paralyzed. And it's a video of her getting on initially sweatpants, which are elasticated in that she can get on independently on her own. But then transitions to an item of clothing that Open Style Lab made when she was on the program that she could get on independently. So a lot of the item, which was kind of like a leotard with a skirt, had long straps that she could attach to door handles or to posts of the bed to enable her to kind of pull it on and off independently. Another element was that the dress had an undergarment which was kind of like an inflatable that she could attach to a machine, which attached with a magnet, but also the machine had a button that she could press with her foot. And this is where you start to also see where engineering, design, occupational therapy, which understands around the different areas of your body, analyzing, what are the areas that Christina can use or what are the areas she can't use to help kind of direct the design, and Christina's lived experience all come together. And the inflatable is also being able to be accessed with her foot, which then allows the skirt part to be lifted up easier for her to be able to get on and off. And then the video continues with her taking the item off, using the straps in the room, and then putting on a jacket component, which is one of my favorite designs. and it has a ribbing around the edge where she can grab onto with her mouth. And a big part of this jacket was that her hands were getting super cold during the winter, and so she couldn't put on gloves independently or put her hands in pockets, so she was hardly leaving the house. And the jacket has slings instead of pockets, which she could use her foot to get her hands into. So it's kind of like a poncho, black poncho with slings. And when she's, the end of the video is her exiting out of the station. And it's a really beautiful and elegant piece that doesn't look like it's been adapted, which I think is the aim of what we're aiming for. It's how do you just design good design, better design that also looks at how you bring in different technologies from material engineering to different disciplines to showcase that also accessible design and looking at inclusive design or disability-led design can lead to innovation. And we've worked with many different material companies from Polytech to Walmart, where we're looking at different materials for temperature regulation or anti-abrasive materials. So we're really set up to showcase that when you look at disability, you can look at it from a space that is innovation and just better design for all. And the next level is also that people with disabilities are able to be leaders in this space. And within the program, we also look at leadership skills, public speaking skills, how to understand the making process. As I said before, I had the privilege of being brought up in a family that everyone was makers. But I know that that's not the norm or isn't always the norm. And there is such a power that comes from understanding how things are made. I think personally, it's made me feel like I can shape the world around me and understand how to get something that maybe isn't there already. And I can imagine it and maybe describe it and see how it can be built. And it gives you a sense of agency and possibility. Or that's what it did for me, and I think for many of our fellows as well. And we've seen in the past 2 years, 30% of our fellows have changed career course after doing our program. Around a month and a half ago, I got an email from one of our disabled fellows from last year saying that he's decided because of our program to go into industrial design. And feedback such as, I didn't know. One of our disabled fellows came up to me and said, this program made me realize I could be more than a user tester. And I think that's what I really want you to take away from this as well, is that not only do you have such a breadth of knowledge when it comes to your own lived experience, to the point that you may not even know all of the things that you've picked up from. I invited a close friend, Anna, who I think is also in the GDI, to come and speak to our fellows around footwear. And she goes, I don't really have anything to say about footwear. And as soon as we got there, she had like 100 different amazing inputs to put. But also, because part of our program is about bringing the community in as well. We want to, if you can't take part in our program, also come in and be part of the process, see the maker space, get a feel. But yeah, just that if you want to make, please, if you want to be involved in Open Style Lab, we've got our fellowship next year. It's going to be around formal wear and uniform, so looking at workwear and formal wear, and we'd love to get you involved and to also see how we can get and adjust machines to get you to make. But yeah, I'll open up for questions.
Thank you so much, Yasmin. That is really amazing to hear all about your work and your thoughts on these different things, because I think you have a really great approach to just thinking about like the maker space and things like that is really fascinating. So I think I'll just see what questions we have in the chat. think there's a question, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, but for example, with the dressing aid, like how that might translate to the global south, and I guess a more how you sort of get those kind of designs out there, I suppose, is, and how you get people to adopt them.
Yeah, so we've worked, so we put up with our main efforts is in the education part of the fellows, because what we see is once you educate them, they go into their work or workplace and they bring in those the ability to do inclusive design. We have also brought out this year specifically like an accessible footwear kit, and in the past a hackability toolkit, which looked at more like low cost, easy adaptations that you can make to your clothing on a day-to-day, but also we had a few tools that were designed within the kit that helped challenge people with challenges with dexterity to be able to make. So some of the time these items get put into kind of toolkits, research journals, and yeah, so I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. I also wanted to ask you, just when you're talking about sort of leadership in this space, and obviously we are the Disabled Leaders Network, so a lot of our focus is on how to be leaders and how to balance that with having a disability, but also what that, you know, the power of being a leader as a disabled person. So I just wondered if there's anything you could sort of talk about in relation to that.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of what I've seen over the last few years is a lot of the time it's miscommunication between maybe either it's discipline miscommunication, you know, not understanding the language of how an occupational therapist will speak or a designer, that there's also, so I'm trying to think about my thoughts here. It's also around, I think, a lot of what we do is like relationship building within the teams. So wanting them to have that friendship or relationship or trust within a group that they can challenge each other. Because too often I feel people with disabilities are treated too delicately in this type of environment. Maybe not too delicately, but we're looking for how can we you know, make things as accessible as possible, but also allow that equity in the design process, that people feel that they can challenge each other, that a disabled person can also learn from the others, and others can learn from people with disabilities and people with occupational therapy. We encourage everyone to have like one toe in if they want to learn more about making an OT or someone with a disability. Often actually people come in. We had a OT last year who also had a disability. But there's a lot around teaching each other their skills and learning from each other's different experiences. We do a lot of public speaking, so they have to showcase their ideas. And then we have an alumni where people come back as mentors. So last year, 70% of our fellows came back as mentors for this year's cohort. And that creates a community of fellows like, you know, like this incredible community that you're building here, where they can help elevate and ask questions and support each other as they're going through their career. But I think a big part that's maybe stops people from disabilities seeing their place in the design process is that they never get to see it completely from beginning to end. And I think once you see it and experience it, then you have a newfound confidence that you understand where your value is in it. But also that you understand maybe even the gaps or the tools that you need to learn to get to that space. But often that, you know, being part of the creative process, you don't have to always be a maker. You know, you don't always have to be at the sewing machine. It could be, you know, understanding how to organize ideas or write a storyboard or tell the story. And there, you know, Chris is going to speak about diverse media and the work that he does, which is absolutely incredible. He filmed actually our final show in September. But the creativity comes in many different processes, and I think it is having that exposure.
Yeah, that's really, I think we have a lot of people on the call who are not necessarily creatives, makers, might not see themselves in that space. And I think it's really valuable to see how they could have a role in that space, even if it wasn't necessarily something they'd previously considered.
I just see two questions. Tell me if, sorry, we need
might
to
need
move on.
to maybe, yeah, if we come back to those at the end, if that's okay.
No problem at all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
To reply in the chat if you would like to.
Yeah, I'll give it a try. Thank you very much. I'm so sorry, guys. I just came off a flight about 2 hours ago, so I'm sorry if I'm a little bit all over the place, but I really appreciate you inviting me and being able to speak.
No, absolutely not. And I hope we will have time for more questions at the end. But yeah, no, thank you so much. So I'd now like to introduce Chris Lynch, who will be talking to us all about his amazing work with Diverse Made Media and his innovative camera operating systems. And yeah, over to you, Chris.
Thank you very much, Ilya. Thanks for having me. Great to be here. And just for visual description, I am a white man wearing a navy blue denim jacket, navy blue baseball hat and jumper. And to my right is a plant that I can hear you all screaming at me. It's dying. I haven't attended to it. It's I came into the studio this morning and it's definitely on its last legs. That would be my first port of call after this session finishes. As you can probably tell, I'm Irish. I moved to London 3 years ago. And just to give you a bit of context, I was born with a condition called osteogenesis imperfecta, which is commonly known as brittle bone disease. Apologies for the signers trying to spell that one out. Thank you. So osteogenesis, brittle bone disease, it has meant that I have had over 100 fractures in my lifetime. I spent most of my childhood in and out of hospital, which really affected a number of parts of my life, from my sort of social activities through to education. And my education, although I went to great school, I was in mainstream education, I had every opportunity to go to university. I guess because of the amount of time that I'd spent in hospital during my childhood. When I got a license to drive at the age of 16, I just wanted to explore the world. I wanted to see what was out there and enjoy life to the fullest. So I, began, I guess, my self-employed entrepreneurial journey quickly after leaving school, and that involved, graphic design, web design, and I set up my first company doing a lot of digital marketing work. And it was funny because I always had this idea that having a disability, I would really need to have some sort of autonomy to carve my own path, something that would give me the flexibility, given any curveballs that would come out of that would work with my health. Or if I had a fracture, for instance, that I would have the flexibility to be able to take some downtime and have that control in my life without having the worry or anxiety that a job would have any sort of risk or implication because of my health condition. So yeah, I set up one of the first digital agencies in Northern Ireland, and that quickly evolved to a full service advertising agency after taking on a business partner. And we had some great times. I mean, that was really my start in film production, because we were producing podcasts, TV commercials, and it was a lot of fun. We got on really well. My business partner was about 20 years older than me, so the contrast of those skills worked really well. And I think the one thing that you sort of come to learn when in business, that there's an initial thought and feeling that you want to replicate yourself, that a duplicate of you would be the best way to grow your business. But I find that in fact you actually want someone with completely different skill sets and abilities to be able to grow your business. And for me, that was proven through this partnership. We got on like a house on fire, and it was that mix of skills and experience that really helped us grow and develop the business. We got into a range of different things in terms of software and websites. I mean, while we were developing TV commercials and that, I love that part of it. We were also developing websites and a multitude of different campaigns and assets for clients based around their advertising and marketing needs. And one of them was a click and collect platform, a software platform that took us down a bit of a rabbit hole in terms of software development. And it ended up, I guess, fundamentally changing the business and where I wanted to be. So the long and short of it is that my business partner bought me out. I sold the company and my shares to him, and it enabled me to set up my first production company. And at the same time, I also set up a restaurant in Belfast, which was a lot of fun, but a lot of hard work trying to grow and manage two businesses. And the film production side of things, we were doing a lot of branded content, started collaborating with other production companies. And one of those production companies was a company called Triple Vision in Belfast. And I had the benefit of co-producing and presenting BBC's The Disability Paradox, which was a documentary based around mental health and disability, really taking a deep dive into how disability impacts mental health. And it was a really, I think, brave thing for the BBC to embark on at that stage, because the narrative around that time, post Paralympics 2012, you had this sort of recurring theme of how disability was being polarized. You were either a superhuman or you were destitute and on benefits, and there was no sort of middle ground. And the whole theme of the superhuman, I think, was so artificial. And I think for me, this documentary, it was an opportunity to peel back the curtain to give a real raw insight into what disability is like and some of the challenges that we all face on a day-to-day basis. The absolute real things, authentic experiences that we all live with. And it was a great start for me in terms of developing my career into TV, because up to then I was doing a lot of branded content, promotional marketing films for different organizations, and it was now allowing me to dip the toe into mainstream network TV. And I had a chat with the guys from Triple Vision, Eamon Devlin, Jared Stratton, who are really amazing, accomplished filmmakers. We looked at the lack of representation behind the camera and in front of the camera when it came to the disabled community. And we felt that there was an opportunity to set up a disabled-led, disabled-focused production company. So we embarked on this new venture that sat alongside of our own existing production companies. And that was called 1 in 5. It was set up as a social enterprise. And 1 in 5 was something fresh for Northern Ireland. It was a really exciting thing for me personally, because it allowed us to take a lot of the work that we had done through the disability paradox, a lot of the connections that we had made throughout the disabled community, and I guess continue the story with it, because there were a lot of untold stories from developing that documentary that we now had the chance to do. So 1 in 5 was, I'll say, plagued with challenges in Northern Ireland. Um, and the reason for that, unfortunately, was because the D&I scene and landscape in Northern Ireland is very different from London and the rest of the UK. And to try and give you a bit of an insight into that, I mean, to this day, Northern Ireland is 97% white. The economy is probably the worst performing part of the UK as well. And from my experience in trying to get traction with 1 in 5, uh, I sort of sensed that businesses and other organizations were really focused on trying to get bums on seats rather than having the ability to look at social impact and how they could look beyond the basics of just trying to survive every single day. And that for me was the reality in terms of the economy and my experience with business in Northern Ireland. It is a small place. I think there's 1.4 million in the entire area of Northern Ireland alone, 375,000 roughly in Belfast. So it's very different on so many levels in the business landscape. And it was from that and the learnings through, trying to apply for grants and develop that organization, it made me look further afield. And some of my colleagues who were really thriving in London and in the rest of the UK and even in the south of Ireland, it just made me put the thinking cap on and see how, if I want to develop my career and the values that I have as an individual and how I can translate that into my career, I needed to look elsewhere. So I moved to London, and I set up Diverse Made Media, which today is a disabled-led film and TV production company that has offices in Hackney Wick. We are flying all over the world producing film content. We've just produced our first TV documentary, In the Driving Seat, which is another one that I've presented and co-produced. It was aired on BBC last week, called In the Driving Seat. And one of the first productions we did, so I'm just going to show you a very quick video, was with Allianz and the Paralympic Committee. And it was really the starting point for how we developed the business and took things to the next level. So I'm going to show that to you now just before explaining any further. And if we could get that up on screen, thanks very much. My name is Chris Lynch and I'm director on set today. We've just arrived and we're getting set up for what will be an amazing 3 days. This has been months in the making. When you're attempting something that's never been done before, preparation is key. Today, with Allianz and the IPC, we're shooting a training series for people with disabilities, created by people with disabilities. Assembling a disabled crew is tough enough as we don't normally get an opportunity, but when we do, this is what happens.
My name's Abby, I'm visually impaired. I can see 5% out of one eye and nothing out of the other. I think it's just great to know that you can get involved and everyone has a day one, don't they?
Ruben, can you just say a couple of words into the mic?
A couple of words into the mic. I'm Ruben Carroll and I am an amputee and I'm production manager. Things are becoming more accessible, more inclusive, and especially on this production.
I'm Greg Baxter. I'm just here for some work experience. I'm a sports journalism student, and so this is a perfect fit, really.
I just love the overall concept. It's giving younger people with disabilities the opportunity to commence their day one in sport, whatever sport that may be.
I think it was a great day today. The whole crew, all the people involved, such a big event and such a big project as well.
It's like I've come full circle from, you know, being the little tiny kid who wasn't sure what was going to happen in life to doing stuff like this. It's huge.
They call it disability, but we're all kind of fine with it, aren't we? Yeah. We're special to the outer world, but we're just normal people.
Wow, what an amazing 3 days. We've just wrapped on Move Now, and what an incredible shoot we've had. So many fantastic team members that have brought the whole production together. Today just goes to show that no matter what your disability, if you have ambition to do something, you can do it.
So that was a great kickstart for us. That was our first major project at Diverse Made Media. We were tasked with trying to get as many people from the disabled community involved in our production as possible. We had about 50 on set, and 50% of our crew were from the community, which was a bit of an industry first at that time. And to this day, I mean, we are still working with a lot of those individuals that form part of our roster. So what we've built at Diverse Media here is we've developed a production company now. Whilst 1 in 5 was purely disabled focused, I really felt that in order to look properly at diversity, equality, inclusion, we needed to look at representing every community. So although we're a disabled-led company, our roster consists of individuals that span every community. And that means for productions that we embark on, if it's a branded bit of content and it maybe has a female focus or a Black focus or a disabled focus, we can cherry pick the right individuals that specialize in those skills that are missing from a production. So if we're bolstering an existing production company, or we're creating the content and material from the ground up ourselves, we can tap into an amazing pool of talent that we have curated over the last number of years since our inception. And in addition to that, you know, one of the other things that has sort of plagued me throughout my journey is being a camera operator. So we have a technology arm of the business that is responsible for developing the world's first wheelchair camera system. And this is something that I, in fact, started back in Ireland. You know, as a wheelchair user of over 40 years, and trying to be a camera operator, I've always said that you need 4 arms to be a camera op. You need 2 arms to push yourself and 2 arms to hold the camera. And, you know, I was very fortunate to get my hands on a self-balancing wheelchair about 5 years ago. And I knew from that moment that I could adapt it in some way to create some sort of camera system. So I looked at the skills and contacts and my network locally when I was in Belfast. I collaborated with a company called Media Mechanical Services. They were responsible for doing a lot of the engineering and rigging work for the likes of Game of Thrones and some of the HBO productions that came into Ireland. And they helped me rig what's called a Steadicam system onto onto the chair, onto the self-balancing chair that I had. And that was a great start. It didn't really work as I had hoped or anticipated, but it was a great first working version to allow me to see how to further develop it. I had to park the idea until then I got to London. And once I landed here, I was able to develop my contact base, my network, and collaborate with some really big industry partners who helped me take the idea and the project further. So the prototype was developed about a year ago that we revealed at Cannes Lion. And in Cannes, it was a great platform, getting in front of some really big brands. And the PR that we got off the back of it was fantastic. We got to use it at the Paralympic Homecoming concert in Birmingham last year. And it was involved in a number of different TV commercials as well, including Motability's new TV commercial, which is out in a few weeks' time. And yeah, it's just been going from strength to strength. We launched our final version, so we essentially had to wait a bit until Jenny, and that's spelled with a G, Jenny, who make the actual chair that is the basis of our camera system. They brought out a brand new self-balancing chair, so we had to reinvent the wheel and sort of adapt the platform once they had released the technology earlier this year. And from then, it's just a case of refining that and getting it ready to take to market. So we got it completed and we did our global launch at a big global trade show called IBC in Amsterdam in September. And we're now shouting about it. We have two clearly defined areas of the business. So we now have our technology arm, which has the camera system at the heart of it, and then we have the production arm to the business, which is producing film, TV content, and yeah, it's quite a challenging task because very quickly I've realized that I have in fact two businesses, which has become quite daunting trying to spin quite a number of plates. But it is a really amazing place to be, flying all over the world, doing what I love. We have so many conversations on the table right now, talking to broadcasters, networks, TV studios, brands like F1, Red Bull, and the opportunity to again take this all over the world, and I can finally pursue something which I love. So it's been quite a long journey, but I've had the privilege of being able to not only harness the power of technology to do what I love, but it's also paving the way for so many others that want to come in and work in the industry. And as part of that, I mean, just to finish up, it has enabled me to be part of so many other different networks within my industry. So I sit on an organization called TAP, the TV Access Project, which is funded by a lot of the big networks such as ITV, BBC, Sky, and I sit on the accessible technology workstream, which is where I can look at how technology, which is the facilitator to all of these different barriers that exist for people that come in and work in the industry. It is such a game changer, and technology is now allowing people to be part of creative production in a way that hasn't been possible in the past before. So I'm really fortunate. I can do what I love doing, and it's just enabling me to unleash the creative part of me that I guess has been locked and hidden for so long. So yeah, I hope that gives you a bit of an insight into my journey, and I would open the floor now and welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Chris. That it's really incredible everything you've done and are doing. I think we've had a question about it was your work with the BBC specifically, but I guess you could talk more generally about sort of like how you pitch to those kind of organizations and sort of secure that partnership.
Yeah. So pitching with the BBC, when I did the first documentary with friends and colleagues back in Belfast, to become an accredited film production company, you have to have a couple of co-productions with an established, recognized film production company. So we've just got our first co-production, co-pro with Vision, which is the one that was aired last week. So that's giving us the first step to independently securing a commission. You do pitch. There's a pitching round. It's a bit like tendering and procurement around tendering for different services. Although you have to become a qualified partner with a lot of these networks to be able to get into that position. So collaborating with other established entities is the way to go, and that's the sort of process that you have to follow to get something independently with the likes of BBC or ITV. They won't look at you just coming out of the woodwork and just pitching something randomly. You have to have an accredited partner on board or co-producing with, and that's the process that I've had to follow. But it's been a great process. I mean, you learn so much from that process as well. So if you're thinking about that, then definitely find a production company that you can partner with that is established and recognized by one of those broadcasters that you can leverage.
Okay, brilliant. And there's a question that kind of, I think, maybe leads on from that, and it's sort of like your advice for freelancers and whether people are better joining an organization or working independently or collaborating amongst themselves, if you have any advice for that.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I see a lot of people going in-house at the moment. The freelance environment in TV and film is very sporadic. It can be for a lot of people. I think there are a lot more opportunities for us now within the disabled community because commissioning bodies, TV networks, film funds are actively looking for how diverse your production is. Today, there are quotas that have to be met, and I think it's somewhat advantageous if you've got the skill set there and the value that you can bring to production, then you're not going to be at a disadvantage anymore, I would say. But it really just depends. I mean, there are pros and cons, and I don't think it really is a disability community focused sort of answer. I think this really applies to everyone that the benefits of being in-house, there's the security, there is the regular work, but the freelance, and again, it gives you that autonomy and freedom to work on multiple different projects, even simultaneously, if that's possible, given your area of expertise. And yeah, it really is a tough one. If you're trying to grow and build something as a freelancer, it just really depends what stage of your career you're at. If you're at a very early stage and entry point, getting a mixture of work experience, collaborating with some bigger production companies, and doing some freelance work can be great. It can be very fulfilling and rewarding. But we all have bills to pay, rent to pay, mortgages to pay. So I guess you'll know best in terms of the dynamic there and what your gut is telling you is the right answer for you.
Brilliant, thank you. I think there's a question that would probably be good to ask both you and Yasmin. So it's obviously for your respective areas, but it's sort of how to make, if you have any thoughts or advice, or sort of how we get these more inclusive practices to be more mainstream and not seen as niche or tokenistic, how we can sort of get them to be adopted by the broader sector in which you're both working. So I don't know if Chris, do you want to go?
Do you want to take?
Oh, or Yasmin, whoever.
I think keep making it visible. I love the work that Chris is doing, because also the reach that you're getting in sharing people's stories and showing the background behind it. And I think we've seen in different platforms, New York Fashion Week or the recent V&A exhibit. It's moments like that where things become visible in a public space. And that's my first thought. I'm going to hand it over to Chris, and maybe I'll have a thought after that.
Yeah, it sort of goes back to what I was saying there in terms of attitudes and how I think organizations are approaching D&I. I think we're all very nervous at the moment, and with the political landscape and how a lot of policies and different things are being pulled. But I think on a whole, we've never been in a better position in terms of being able to be included and involved in different areas of work and life. And I think for me, I always say just focus on I mean, it's not that I would ever encourage you to lean on that, but just always work on yourself, show people that you're the best candidates in the room. And that comes through continuous learning and developing your skill set. I think if you've got that as the foundation, then you can go confidently into any situation with your head held high, and you can only stay positive that that organization will include you as they should, that you won't be at a disadvantage. But I think the other thing is look at what other means of support you can get as an individual, things like access to work and other supporting structures to make sure that you can do the very best work that you can, and you're not limited because of your disability. And that's one thing that I've really found to be crucially important as I've developed my career, both from the physical aspects of going on set and being able to have someone that can set up the equipment for me, through to now my ADHD overload and being able to plan and manage things and build in routines and all those other sort of overwhelming tasks that can come from spinning too many plates.
Yeah, Yasmin, did you want to come in with anything else? Don't worry if not.
No, I think kind of building on what Chris said, I think it is just working. I know that you said it may not, but working on your craft, and showing that you can be the best in that room, but also understanding and knowing how to ask for help. I think that took me a long time. Even things like understanding what I needed. A lot of the time it took me time to understand what I needed, and being able to ask for it, and working in environments that allow that as much as you can as well. I know sometimes that's not always possible, but to enable you to do the best that you can do.
Absolutely. I think that kind of leads me on to my final question, which is to both of you, is we talk a lot at the Disabled Leaders Network about the value, obviously, of disabled leadership, and how important it is, and sort of the power and the privilege that comes with that, but also the burden of it, and the sort of wanting to bring people along with you and not pull up the ladder behind you, so to speak. And sort of I just wondered if you had any thoughts on how to take care of yourself during the process, but also how to sort of make sure that you bring others with you, and that is it's sort of you are leading and a transformative space, I guess. That's quite a big question, but just any thoughts you have.
I'm happy to go on that one. I've struggled with that at different points. I think a lot of it came from when I felt I needed to do everything myself. And I think what's allowed me to kind of let go of a lot of that burden, because I love what I do. And I think a lot of, when we're talking about being in this space, I'm sure, Chris, you relate, it's very personal as well. So it is hard to have that cutoff. It's not the same 9 to 5. And especially when it's, you're working with other people who are, you know, have disabilities like yourself, and you see that their potential and you want to do the best in that way, it becomes personal on another level of in that relationship. And a big part for me was being able to, one, take space, understand how I work. So I'm not a 9 to 5 person. I work intensely and then I need like a break for like a week of like nothing. So understanding that and taking that space as well, but then also bringing people along on the journey with you, letting go a bit. That took time for me as well, like giving people, delegating a lot more. And also because you're doing something, oftentimes if you're doing something in this space, people will feel connected and want to be involved with you as well, and being open to that. But also understanding, I think for Open Star Lab, we have sometimes a lot of people that volunteer, and that's hard as well because you have to manage the volunteers. So knowing sometimes when, not always, you need the help. I don't know, that was a bit contradictory, Chris. I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. But for me, it's sort of thinking and looking at the lack of really established entrepreneurs that are super successful. I mean, you Google millionaire disabled leaders, and you'll find a handful. It's a real challenge that and there's no denying it. We are disadvantaged by our disabilities because of the barriers that we face every single day. And I think back to at the same time a book that Andy Nairn wrote called Go Luck Yourself. Andy Nairn is founder of Lucky Generals advertising agency. They very kindly gifted us office space when we were developing the business. And Andy's wife has MS. And in his book, he refers to people with disabilities being the most creative in society because we're making hacks every single day. We create these workarounds in order to get shit done. And no truer thing is said at the same time, whilst we have so many other things to consider and try and figure out when developing our careers and our businesses. We have the creative capacity to do it and to succeed, and not only succeed but be excellent in our respective fields. And I think as we move forward, as technology is developing and it's really helping so many of us, and they're more supporting, there's the recognition that we need and deserve support, and there's more support available. And like, I know access to work hasn't been perfect, but 5-10 years ago this scheme didn't exist. So it shows that when something is put in place to help an individual, great things are possible. And moving forward, and just to sort of summarize that, I think this the era that we're in now and how we're able to adapt as individuals, as Yasmin's saying, asking for help, I think is the biggest thing that you can do, and trying to tap into that, trying to delegate where you can, and lean on others that are ready and willing to help. And I know a lot of us are very proud and afraid to ask for help a lot of the time, but genuinely, if you want success, try and delegate as much as you can when you can, in order for you to focus on the really great stuff that you're able to produce. So hope that answers your question. But
I'd love to just build on one more thing, as you said, Chris. I think also prioritizing, and that you have limited energy, and that if you're if you're saying yes to something, you're saying no to something else as well, and constantly checking in and being like, is this the most important thing? Can this be delegated? And doing that, almost once a week, having an understanding of what you're doing because your time and your energy is your biggest resource. And especially, as many of you will relate, also when you have a disability, a lot of that time and energy will also go into looking after your body. So you've got to be even more efficient.
Thank you. You've given us lots to think about there. So much really valuable information. So I can't thank you both enough for joining us today and for sharing so openly and candidly. So I really appreciate it. And so I think we're a little bit over time. So I think we probably need to wrap up there. But if anyone joining, would like more details or any further questions, please do email us on disabledleadersnetwork@ucl.ac.uk. We'll put that in the chat. And we'll try and follow up with that. But yes, if you're in the Disabled Leaders Network, we'll be having our DLN only discussion now on the other link, so I'll see you there. Otherwise, I hope that you'll be able to join us for our next event, which is on the 16th of December on producing accessible events, which you should see the link to join, to register for that is in the chat now. Otherwise, all that's left to say is thank you so much to our access providers, to Vicky, Amy and Heather, and thank you so much, Chris and Yasmin. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
All the best, guys. Okay.
Thank you.